Picture this. You're standing in a room full of seasoned military officers, each one convinced they know exactly what you're capable of based on a single glance. The air is thick with skepticism, and you can practically hear their thoughts echoing off the walls. She doesn't belong here. This is a waste of time. What's she trying to prove? But here's the thing about assumptions. They have a funny way of exploding in people's faces, quite literally in this case. What you're about to witness is more than just a story about proving doubters wrong. It's about the moment when raw determination collides with institutional prejudice, when skill speaks louder than status, and when one person's refusal to accept no changes everything. This isn't your typical underdog tale. This is the story of how a woman walked into the most elite military training facility in the world, faced down decades of tradition and bias, and didn't just meet the impossible standards set before her. She obliterated them so completely that even the most hardened Navy SEALs had to stop and take notice. Some records are meant to be broken. Others are meant to be shattered so thoroughly that they force everyone to question everything they thought they knew. This is one of those stories. Get ready to witness what happens when unstoppable determination meets immovable tradition. Spoiler alert, tradition loses. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Naval Special Warfare Command Base in Coronado, California, as Staff Sergeant Maya Rodriguez walked through the main gate. At 5'4" with a slight build, she hardly looked like someone who would challenge the most elite warriors in the military. The guards nodded respectfully, recognizing her Army uniform, but their eyes held that familiar look she'd grown accustomed to over her 8 years of service, polite acknowledgement mixed with subtle dismissal. Maya had earned her stripes the hard way, starting as a private fresh out of high school in a small Texas town where opportunities were as scarce as rain in August. Her father had been a mechanic, her mother a nurse, and neither had quite understood why their daughter insisted on joining the Army instead of going to college like her older brother. But Maya had always been different. While other kids played with dolls or video games, she'd been taking apart radios and rebuilding them, learning to shoot with her grandfather's old hunting rifle, and reading military history books she'd borrowed from the library. Her military career had been steady but unremarkable by most standards. She'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan as a communications specialist, earned her sergeant stripes ahead of schedule, and had recently completed advanced marksmanship training at Fort Benning. It was there that her shooting instructor, a grizzled master sergeant named Tom Harrison, had pulled her aside after a particularly impressive performance on the range. "Rodriguez," he'd said, squinting at the target she'd just demolished from 800 yards with an M24 sniper rifle. "I've been doing this for 23 years, and I've seen maybe 5 people shoot like that. You've got a gift." The conversation that followed changed everything. Harrison told her about opportunities for cross-service training, about programs that allowed exceptional soldiers to learn from other branches. But when Maya mentioned her interest in testing herself against the most elite units, Harrison's expression had grown serious. "You talking about the SEALs?" he'd asked. "Because that's a whole different world, Rodriguez. They don't exactly roll out the welcome mat for outsiders, especially." He'd trailed off, but Maya knew what he meant. Especially women. Especially Army personnel trying to prove something in Navy territory. Especially someone who looked like she should be teaching elementary school rather than handling military-grade weapons. But Maya had never been one to back down from a challenge. In fact, the bigger the challenge, the more it seemed to fuel something deep inside her. It was the same fire that had driven her to outshoot every male recruit in basic training, to volunteer for the most dangerous communications assignments in Afghanistan, and to spend her leave time at civilian shooting ranges, constantly pushing herself to be better. The opportunity came through an unusual channel. The Navy was conducting a joint service training exercise, evaluating new sniper techniques and equipment. They needed test subjects from different military backgrounds to provide diverse perspectives on their training methods. When Maya's commanding officer mentioned the opportunity, she volunteered immediately. "It's not a competition," Lieutenant Colonel James Wright had warned her. "You'll be observing their methods, maybe participating in some basic exercises. Don't go in there thinking you're going to show them up." Maya had nodded and agreed, but inside, she was already planning something much more ambitious. She'd spent weeks researching Navy SEAL training protocols, studying their shooting standards, and analyzing the records that were publicly available. What she found both impressed and motivated her. These men were the best of the best, no question. But their marksmanship records, while excellent, weren't impossible. They were just unmatched. The base itself was exactly what she'd expected: pristine, efficient, and radiating an aura of elite professionalism. Everything from the perfectly maintained buildings to the way personnel carried themselves spoke of exacting standards and uncompromising excellence. Maya felt a familiar flutter of nervous excitement in her stomach, the same feeling she'd had before every major test in her military career. She was directed to Building 47, a nondescript structure that housed the Marksmanship Training Division. Inside, the walls were lined with photographs of distinguished graduates, shooting trophies, and plaques commemorating various achievements. Maya studied them as she waited, noting the dates, the scores, the faces, all male, all radiating confidence and capability. "You must be Rodriguez." Maya turned to find a tall, lean man in his 40s approaching. His uniform identified him as Commander Steve Mitchell, and his grip when they shook hands was firm but not challenging. His eyes, however, were assessing her with the kind of professional evaluation she'd learned to recognize and respect. "Thank you for having me, sir," Maya replied. "I'm excited to learn from your program." Mitchell nodded, his expression neutral. "We don't get many Army personnel here, especially for marksmanship training. Your file says you've got some impressive scores from Fort Benning." "I try to stay sharp, sir." "Good attitude." Mitchell gestured for her to follow him down a corridor lined with more photographs and awards. "I'll be honest with you, Rodriguez. Some of the men aren't thrilled about having an observer during training. Nothing personal, you understand. They just prefer to keep things in-house." Maya had expected as much. Elite units were notoriously protective of their methods and traditions. "I understand, sir. I'm just here to learn and maybe offer a different perspective if it's helpful." They entered a briefing room where a dozen Navy SEALs were seated around a conference table. The conversation stopped the moment Maya walked in. She felt their eyes cataloging everything about her: her size, her bearing, her equipment. It was the kind of scrutiny that might have intimidated someone less experienced, but Maya had faced it many times before. She simply stood at attention and waited for instructions. Commander Mitchell performed brief introductions. The SEALs nodded politely but remained reserved. Maya caught a few exchanged glances that she interpreted as skepticism mixed with curiosity. These men had earned their elite status through some of the most grueling training in the military. They had every right to be protective of their standards and traditions. The briefing covered the week's training schedule. They would be testing new long-range rifle systems, evaluating different ammunition types, and working on various shooting scenarios. Maya would observe most exercises and participate in a few basic drills to provide feedback on the equipment from an outside perspective. "Any questions?" Mitchell asked as he concluded the briefing. Maya raised her hand. "Sir, I was wondering about your qualification standards for the long-range work. I've reviewed the basic requirements, but I'm curious about the advanced benchmarks." One of the SEALs, a burly man with sergeant stripes, spoke up. "What kind of distances are you familiar with, Rodriguez?" "I've worked effectively out to about 1,200 yards with the M24 system, Sergeant. Comfortable to 1,000 in field conditions." There was a moment of silence. These were respectable distances, but nothing that would particularly impress a room full of Navy SEALs. What Maya didn't mention was that her effective work at those distances involved groupings that would make most military marksmen weep with envy. "Well," said another SEAL, "this one with Lieutenant's bars, you'll get to see how we do things. Might learn something useful." The condescension in his tone was subtle but unmistakable. Maya simply nodded. "Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to it." As the briefing ended and the men filed out, Maya overheard fragments of conversation. "See how long she lasts. Probably wants to write some paper about it. At least she seems to know which end of a rifle to hold." Maya smiled to herself. She'd heard variations of these comments throughout her career. They no longer stung. Instead, they served as fuel for the quiet fire that had driven her to excel in every military school, every assignment, every challenge she'd faced. That afternoon, she was given a tour of the ranges and facilities. The equipment was impressive, state-of-the-art rifles, advanced optics, and ranges that extended far beyond what most military installations could offer. The 1,000-yard range was particularly impressive, with electronic targets that could provide instant feedback on shot placement. "This is where we qualify our long-range specialists," explained Petty Officer Marcus Thompson, who'd been assigned as her guide. He was friendlier than some of the others, perhaps because he was closer to her own age. Current record for the standard qualification is held by Chief Martinez. Shot a 247 out of 250 possible points at 1,000 yards. That's been standing for about 3 years now. Maya nodded appreciatively. It was indeed an excellent score. What's the course of fire? 25 rounds at 1,000 yards, 5 different positions, varying conditions. Each ring is worth 10 points. Center X ring is worth 10 with a tie-breaking advantage. Weather can be tricky here with the ocean winds, so you've got to read conditions constantly. Sounds challenging. Thompson grinned. It's designed to separate the good shooters from the truly exceptional ones. Most people are happy to qualify with a 200. Anything over 220 puts you in elite company. Martinez's 247 is just, well, it's why he's a chief, and I'm still a petty officer. As they continued the tour, Maya absorbed every detail. She noted wind patterns, studied the target systems, and observed the shooting positions. Her mind was already working through the mathematics of ballistics, wind drift, and environmental factors. By the time they finished, she had a clear picture of what the course demanded. That evening, in her temporary quarters, Maya cleaned her personal rifle, a customized M24 that she'd gradually modified over several years. It wasn't flashy, but every component had been carefully selected and precisely adjusted. The stock fit her perfectly, the trigger broke cleanly at exactly 2 pounds, and the scope was mounted and zeroed with mathematical precision. She thought about Chief Martinez's record. A 247 out of 250 was exceptional by any standard. But, as Maya ran through the ballistics calculations in her head, factoring in what she'd observed about the range conditions and wind patterns, she began to wonder if the record was more about the difficulty of the course or the limitations of the shooters who had attempted it. There was only one way to find out. The next morning brought clear skies and light winds, nearly perfect conditions for long-range shooting. Maya arrived at the range early, hoping to get a feel for the equipment before the day's official training began. She found Chief Martinez already there, methodically preparing his rifle. "Morning, Sergeant," he said without looking up. "Couldn't sleep either? Just wanted to familiarize myself with the facilities, Chief." "Hope that's all right." Martinez glanced at her rifle case. "That your personal weapon?" "Yes, sir. I know I'm here to evaluate your equipment, but I learn better when I start with something familiar." Smart approach. Martinez finished his rifle prep and stood. He was a compact man, probably in his late 30s, with the kind of weathered face that spoke of years spent squinting through rifle scopes. "Mind if I take a look?" Always curious about how other services set up their precision rifles. Maya opened her case and began assembling her rifle. She was conscious of Martinez watching every movement, evaluating her handling and equipment choices. It was a form of professional courtesy among marksmen. You could learn a lot about someone's skill level by watching how they handled their weapon. "Nice setup," Martinez said as Maya completed the assembly. "That's a heart barrel, isn't it? And you've got the Macmillan stock. Good choices." "Thank you, Chief. I've had a few years to work out the details." Martinez nodded approvingly. "Well, since we're both here, want to send a few rounds downrange? I like to check my zero every morning anyway." It was an invitation Maya had been hoping for. "I'd appreciate that, Chief. What distance would you recommend for a check?" "Let's start at 300 yards, then move back to 600. Give you a feel for how the conditions affect things here." They moved to the firing line together. Maya appreciated Martinez's professional approach. No condescension, no skepticism, just one marksman helping another get oriented. She sat up in the prone position, adjusted her scope, and began her shooting routine. Her first shot at 300 yards struck dead center. The second shot touched the first. By the fifth shot, she had created a group that could be covered by a quarter. Martinez was quiet for a moment, studying the target through his spotting scope. That's some shooting, Sergeant. Your rifle's definitely zeroed." "Thank you, Chief. Should we move back to 600? The 600-yard results were equally impressive. Maya's 5-shot group measured just over 2 inches, which at that distance represented shooting that was approaching the theoretical limits of the rifle and ammunition combination. "Rodriguez," Martinez said slowly, "I think you might be sandbagging us a little bit." Maya looked up from her rifle. "I'm sorry, Chief. Those groups you just shot? That's not staying sharp shooting. I'm one of the best marksmen in the military shooting. What exactly is your background?" Maya had been dreading this moment, but she'd also been looking forward to it. It was time to be honest about her capabilities and her intentions. "Chief, I've been shooting competitively since I was 12 years old. I've won several national civilian championships and set a few junior records that still stand. I didn't join the Army to be a marksman initially, but once I discovered military precision shooting, it became my passion." Martinez was studying her with new interest. "And you're here just to observe our training methods?" That was the original plan, Chief. But I'll be honest with you. I've been curious about your qualification course for a long time. Specifically, about whether your record really represents the limit of what's possible or just the limit of what's been attempted so far. A slow smile spread across Martinez's face. Sergeant Rodriguez, I think you just made this week a lot more interesting. Word traveled fast in the tight-knit SEAL community. By noon, everyone in the marksmanship division knew that the Army Observer had just shot groups at 600 yards that were tighter than most of them could manage at 300. The news created a ripple of interest and skepticism that grew throughout the day. Maya found herself the subject of increased attention during lunch. Conversations would pause when she approached, then resume in hushed tones after she passed. She recognized the dynamic. It was the same pattern she'd observed whenever someone new demonstrated exceptional ability in a specialized field. The community needed time to process and evaluate the newcomer. Chief Martinez had apparently shared their morning range session with Commander Mitchell because Maya was called to his office after lunch. Sergeant Rodriguez, Mitchell said as she entered, Chief Martinez tells me you've got some impressive shooting skills. I do my best, sir. Mitchell gestured for her to sit. His desk was neat and organized, with several marksmanship trophies and a photograph of him with what appeared to be his SEAL team. He also mentioned that you're interested in our qualification course. Want to explain that to me? Maya had prepared for this conversation. Sir, I came here to learn from the best marksmen in the military. But I've also always believed that excellence comes from pushing boundaries and testing limits. Your qualification course represents a standard that's recognized throughout the special operations community. I'd like to understand what makes it so challenging and, if possible, attempt it myself. You understand that course isn't designed for observers, right? It's a SEAL qualification standard. The men who attempt it have gone through months of specialized training. Yes, sir, I understand that. But I've also spent years developing my marksmanship skills, and I believe that skill transcends service boundaries. If I fail, I fail. But if I don't try, I'll never know what I'm truly capable of. Mitchell leaned back in his chair, studying her. Martinez also said you implied our current record might not represent the true limits of the course. Maya felt her pulse quicken. This was dangerous territory. Sir, I have great respect for Chief Martinez's shooting ability. His record is exceptional. I was simply curious about whether the course difficulty comes from environmental factors, equipment limitations, or the inherent challenge of the shooting problems themselves. In other words, you want to know if you can do better. There was no point in being coy anymore. Yes, sir. I believe I might be able to. Mitchell was quiet for a long moment. Maya could see him weighing options, considering implications. Finally, he spoke. Rodriguez, what you're suggesting isn't just about shooting scores. This is about pride, tradition, and the reputation of some very accomplished men. If you attempt our qualification and fail badly, it's embarrassing for you, but doesn't really affect us. But if you succeed, especially if you succeed dramatically, it raises questions about our standards and our people that I'm not sure anyone's ready for. Maya understood the delicate politics involved. Military units, especially elite ones, built their identity around their standards and achievements. An outsider surpassing those achievements could be seen as either validation of the standards or as proof that the unit's members weren't as exceptional as they believed. Sir, I've thought about that. But I've also learned that the strongest units are the ones willing to be challenged and to grow. If I can help identify ways to improve training or standards, isn't that valuable? And if I can't meet your current standards, then we've confirmed their validity. Mitchell nodded slowly. You make a fair point. But understand, if we do this, it's not going to be casual. The men will want to see everything, your technique, your equipment, your preparation. And if you're successful, they're going to want to understand how and why. I wouldn't expect anything less, sir. All right, I'm going to discuss this with my senior staff. If we decide to let you attempt the qualification, it'll be under full observation and evaluation. Fair enough. More than fair, sir. Thank you for considering it. As Maya left Mitchell's office, she felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. She'd just committed herself to a challenge that could either validate years of training and preparation or expose her as overconfident and underprepared. There was no middle ground. That afternoon, she joined the SEALs for their regular training exercises. The atmosphere was different now, more attentive, more evaluative. She could feel them watching her shooting positions, her rifle handling, her target analysis. It was like being under a microscope, but Maya had learned to perform under scrutiny. During a basic rifle exercise at 400 yards, Maya shot alongside Petty Officer Thompson and 2 other SEALs. The exercise involved engaging multiple targets in sequence, simulating a tactical scenario. Maya's performance was clean and efficient, every shot a hit, transitions smooth and fast. "Damn, Rodriguez," Thompson said as they finished. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" "Lots of practice, Petty Officer. And some good teachers along the way." One of the other SEALs, a petty officer named Davis, was studying her target. "These aren't just hits," he said. "These are all center mass or better. That's some seriously consistent shooting." Maya appreciated the professional respect in his voice. These men knew shooting, and they recognized quality marksmanship when they saw it. Their initial skepticism was giving way to genuine interest. As the afternoon progressed, word spread that Maya might attempt their qualification course. The news generated intense discussion among the SEALs. Some were intrigued by the prospect of seeing their standards tested by an outsider. Others were protective of their achievements and traditions. A few seemed almost eager to see her fail, as if that would validate their own accomplishments. Chief Martinez approached Maya as they cleaned their rifles at the end of the day. "Rodriguez, I hear the commander might let you take a shot at our course." "That's what we discussed, Chief. Pending approval from the senior staff." Martinez nodded thoughtfully. "Can I give you some advice?" "I'd appreciate it, Chief. The course isn't just about raw shooting ability. It's designed to test everything: your physical conditioning, your mental toughness, your ability to perform under pressure. The shooting positions are uncomfortable. The time limits are tight. The environmental conditions can change rapidly. Even if you're the best pure marksman in the world, those factors can break you down." Maya listened carefully. Martinez wasn't trying to discourage her. He was giving her valuable intelligence about what she would face. "What would you recommend I focus on in preparation?" "Endurance," Martinez said immediately. "You'll be holding precision shooting positions for extended periods. Most people's groups start opening up not because they can't read the wind or because their equipment fails, but because their muscles start shaking from fatigue." It was excellent advice, and Maya filed it away. She'd always prided herself on physical conditioning, but holding a precision rifle steady for extended periods required specific muscle groups and endurance that general fitness didn't necessarily develop. "Chief, can I ask you something? When you shot your record, what was the limiting factor? What kept you from scoring higher?" Martinez considered the question seriously. "Honestly, 2 things. First, there's a wind shift that happens on that range around shot 15. It's subtle, but if you don't catch it, it'll cost you points. Second, the final position is a modified prone that puts stress on your back and shooting arm. By shot 20, most people are fighting muscle fatigue." Maya absorbed this information. Both factors were manageable with proper preparation and technique. The wind shift could be anticipated and adjusted for. The muscle fatigue could be minimized through specific conditioning and proper body positioning. "Chief, I appreciate you sharing that with me. Most people wouldn't help someone who's trying to break their record." Martinez smiled. "Rodriguez, I've held that record for 3 years. If someone can beat it legitimately, through skill and preparation, then they deserve it. Records are meant to be broken by better performance, not protected through secrecy." It was exactly the attitude Maya hoped to encounter. Competition and challenge made everyone better. Protecting mediocrity helped no one. That evening, Maya spent time reviewing everything she'd learned about the course. She studied meteorological data for the range, analyzed the shooting positions, and worked out a training regimen to prepare for the physical demands. Her approach was methodical and thorough, the same systematic preparation that had made her successful in every military challenge she'd faced. The next morning brought news that Commander Mitchell had received approval for her attempt. The qualification would be scheduled for the end of the week, giving her time to prepare and allowing the staff to arrange for proper observation and documentation. "There will be conditions," Mitchell explained when he called her to his office. "First, this will be treated as a formal evaluation. We'll have multiple observers, including senior staff from other departments. Second, you'll use our standard equipment and ammunition, not your personal rifle. Third, everything will be recorded and documented. If you're successful, there will be questions about methods and techniques that you'll need to answer fully." Maya had expected these conditions. Using their equipment actually made more sense. It would prevent any questions about specialized gear or ammunition. "That's all acceptable, sir. When would you like to schedule it?" "Friday morning. That gives you the rest of this week to familiarize yourself with our rifles and to prepare. Chief Martinez will work with you on equipment selection and zeroing." Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. Rodriguez, Mitchell said as she prepared to leave. I want to be clear about something. This isn't about letting me down or anyone else. This is about you testing yourself against a standard we're proud of. Whatever happens, happens. But I respect the fact that you're willing to try. The rest of the week passed in intensive preparation. Maya worked with Martinez to select and zero a rifle that matched her shooting style. They settled on an M24A2 with a Leupold Mark IV scope, similar to her personal rifle but with subtle differences in trigger feel and stock dimensions that required adjustment. Each morning, Maya spent an hour in physical conditioning specifically designed for precision shooting. She practiced holding various shooting positions for extended periods, building the specific muscle endurance that Martinez had identified as crucial. She also spent time studying meteorological patterns for the range, learning to read the subtle wind signs that would affect bullet flight at 1,000 yards. The other SEALs watched her preparations with growing interest. Her methodical approach and obvious dedication was earning their respect, even from those who had initially been skeptical. Several offered advice about range conditions and shooting techniques. Others shared stories about their own qualification attempts and the challenges they'd faced. She's serious about this. Maya overheard one SEAL telling another. I thought she was just trying to make a statement, but look at how she's preparing. She's treating this like the real deal. Maya was treating it like the real deal because it was. This wasn't about making a statement or proving a point. It was about testing the limits of her abilities against the highest standard she could find. The fact that it involved challenging a Navy SEAL record was secondary to the personal quest for excellence that had driven her entire military career. By Thursday evening, Maya felt as ready as she could be. Her rifle was zeroed perfectly, she'd adapted to the equipment differences, and her physical conditioning was optimized for the demands of the course. She'd studied every aspect of the challenge and prepared systematically for each potential difficulty. Chief Martinez found her on the range that evening, conducting a final practice session. How are you feeling about tomorrow? He asked. Ready, Maya replied. Nervous, but ready. Good. Nerves mean you understand what you're attempting. Martinez paused, watching her shoot. Rodriguez, I want you to know something. Regardless of what happens tomorrow, you've already impressed everyone here. The way you've prepared, the respect you've shown for the course, and the record, the professionalism you've demonstrated, that matters more than any score. Maya appreciated his words, but her focus was already shifting to the next day's challenge. She'd spent her entire military career preparing for moments like this, opportunities to test herself against the highest standards and to discover what she was truly capable of achieving. Tomorrow would provide those answers. Friday morning arrived with perfect shooting conditions, clear skies, light winds, and excellent visibility. Maya woke before dawn, not from nervousness, but from the anticipation that always accompanied significant challenges. She'd experienced the same feeling before every major competition, every important qualification, every moment when her skills would be truly tested. The base was unusually busy for an early morning. Word had spread throughout the special operations community about the Army sergeant who was attempting to break the SEAL marksmanship record. Personnel who normally wouldn't have any reason to visit the ranges were finding excuses to be in the area. The pressure was building, but Maya had learned long ago to use external pressure as fuel rather than distraction. Commander Mitchell found her in the armory as she was conducting her final equipment check. Big day, Sergeant. How are you holding up? Ready to go, sir. Equipment's all set. Conditions look favorable. Mitchell nodded, but Maya could see the concern in his eyes. This had grown beyond a simple qualification attempt. The scrutiny and attention meant that failure wouldn't just affect Maya. It would reflect on his decision to allow the attempt in the first place. Rodriguez, I want you to know that there's no shame in withdrawing if you're having second thoughts. This has gotten a lot bigger than any of us anticipated. Maya appreciated his concern, but backing down now wasn't an option. Sir, I appreciate that, but I've been preparing for this moment my entire career. I'm not going to walk away now. All right then, let's go make history, one way or another. The range was more crowded than Maya had expected. In addition to the marksmanship staff, she counted at least 20 observers, including several senior officers she hadn't met. A video crew was setting up equipment to document the attempt. Chief Martinez was at the firing line with her rifle, conducting final checks and adjustments. Morning, Rodriguez, Martinez said as she approached. Rifles ready. Ammunition is laid out according to course standards. Weather conditions are about as good as they get for this range. Maya studied the conditions. The wind was light and steady from the southwest, visibility was unlimited, and the temperature was cool enough to prevent heat mirage. If she was going to make a record attempt, these were nearly ideal circumstances. Any last-minute advice, Chief? Remember what we talked about, the wind shift around shot 15, and don't let muscle fatigue affect your form in the final position. Other than that, just shoot your normal game. You've got the skills, trust them. Commander Mitchell called for attention and began explaining the qualification course to the assembled observers. This is our standard long-range marksmanship qualification. 25 rounds at 1,000 yards, 5 different shooting positions, each scored on a 10-ring target system. Maximum possible score is 250 points. Current record is 247, held by Chief Martinez. He gestured toward Maya, who was beginning her pre-shooting routine. Sergeant Rodriguez will be attempting this qualification using our standard equipment and ammunition. The attempt will be fully documented and verified by multiple observers. Maya tuned out the commentary and focused on her preparation. She checked her rifle one final time, adjusted her shooting jacket, and began the mental routine that had served her in countless competitions. Breathing became deeper and more controlled. Her heart rate slowed. The external pressure and distractions faded into background noise. The first position was prone, supported. Maya settled into her shooting stance, feeling the rifle settle naturally into her shoulder. The scope's reticle was steady on the target, a small white square at what seemed like an impossible distance. At 1,000 yards, the target appeared as a tiny speck even through the high-magnification scope. "Shooter ready?" called the range officer. "Ready," Maya replied. "You may commence firing when ready." 5 rounds, prone supported position. Maya's first shot broke cleanly, the rifle recoiling straight back into her shoulder. Through the spotting scope, Chief Martinez called out X-ring, dead center. The second shot followed 10 seconds later. X-ring, 6 o'clock. By the 5th shot, Maya had established a rhythm. Every shot felt perfect, clean trigger break, natural point of aim, proper follow-through. Martinez's calls confirmed what she felt. X-ring, 9 o'clock. X-ring, 12 o'clock. X-ring, center. 5 perfect shots. 50 points. The observers were murmuring among themselves, but Maya couldn't afford to pay attention to their reactions. The second position was prone, unsupported. This was more challenging, requiring her to stabilize the rifle using only her body and natural points of contact. Maya adjusted her position, worked her body into the rifle, and began the second string of fire. These shots required more patience. Without artificial support, she had to time each shot for the natural respiratory pause when her body was most stable. The first shot took nearly 30 seconds as she worked to achieve perfect stability. X-ring, 10 o'clock, Martinez called. The remaining 4 shots came more quickly as Maya found her rhythm in the new position. All landed in the X-ring, bringing her score to 100 points after 10 shots. Position 3 was sitting, supported. Maya moved quickly but deliberately, establishing her new firing position and adjusting her natural point of aim. This position was less stable than prone, but allowed faster target acquisition and engagement. The wind had picked up slightly, requiring careful attention to environmental conditions. Maya watched the range flags and grass movement, calculating the wind's effect on bullet flight. Her first shot in the sitting position was slightly off-center, but still well within the X-ring. X-ring, 3 o'clock, Martinez confirmed. Maya made a small windage adjustment and continued firing. The next 4 shots clustered tightly in the center of the X-ring, demonstrating her ability to read conditions and make precise adjustments. After 15 shots, Maya's score stood at 150 points, perfect shooting. The crowd of observers had grown noticeably quieter, their initial skepticism replaced by recognition of what they were witnessing. Position 4 was standing, supported. This was where many shooters began to struggle, as the human body's natural movement made precision shooting much more challenging. Maya established her stance behind the shooting support, working to minimize the natural sway that affected all standing shots. The first shot from standing took nearly a minute as Maya waited for the precise moment when her natural point of aim and body stability aligned perfectly. The shot broke cleanly, but Maya knew immediately that it wasn't quite perfect. 9 ring, 12 o'clock, Martinez called. It was her first shot outside the X-ring, but still well within the scoring rings. Maya's second standing shot was better, landing in the X-ring. The third shot was also an X. The fourth shot dropped slightly, scoring another 9 ring. Her fifth standing shot returned to the X-ring. After 20 shots, Maya's score was 198 out of 200 points, an exceptional performance that was already within striking distance of Martinez's record. But the final position was yet to come, and it was reputedly the most challenging. The fifth and final position was modified prone, designed to simulate a tactical shooting position where the shooter had to work around obstacles or terrain features. The position required an awkward body angle that put stress on the back and shooting arm while maintaining precision at 1,000 yards. Maya moved into the final position and immediately understood why Martinez had warned her about muscle fatigue. The body position was uncomfortable and placed strain on muscle groups that weren't used to supporting a precision rifle for extended periods. She would need to fire 5 shots while fighting increasing physical discomfort. Taking her time to establish the best possible position within the constraints of the exercise, Maya settled in for the final 5 shots. Her score needed to be 49 out of 50 points to tie Martinez's record, or 50 points to set a new record. The first shot from the modified prone position required exceptional concentration. Maya's natural point of aim felt less stable, and she could feel the beginnings of muscle tension in her back and shoulder. She controlled her breathing, waited for the moment of perfect stability, and broke the shot cleanly. X-ring, center, Martinez called, his voice betraying a hint of amazement. The second shot was more difficult as the muscle strain increased. Maya had to work harder to achieve the same level of stability, but her shot discipline remained perfect. She waited until conditions were optimal before breaking the shot. X-ring, 9 o'clock. Maya's score now stood at 218 points with 3 shots remaining. She needed 29 more points to tie the record, or 30 points to break it. With perfect X-ring shots worth 10 points each, she had little margin for error. The third shot was when most shooters began to struggle with the accumulated muscle fatigue. Maya could feel the strain in her back and shoulder, but her mental discipline overrode the physical discomfort. She focused entirely on the shooting fundamentals that had become second nature through thousands of hours of practice. The shot broke perfectly. X-ring, 6 o'clock. 2 shots remaining. Maya's score was 228 points. She needed 19 points to tie the record, which meant she could drop 1 point and still achieve her goal. As Maya prepared for her 24th shot, she felt something she hadn't experienced during the entire course of fire, doubt. Not about her ability to make the shots, but about the magnitude of what she was attempting. Breaking this record would change perceptions and challenge assumptions that had existed for years. She pushed the doubt aside and focused on the immediate task. The rifle settled into her shoulder, the scope's reticle found the target center, and her breathing slowed to the controlled rhythm that preceded every perfect shot. The 24th shot broke cleanly. X-ring, 12 o'clock, Martinez called, but his voice was now tight with tension. Everyone present understood the significance of what was happening. 1 shot remaining. Maya's score was 238 points. Chief Martinez's record was 247. To break the record, this final shot needed to score 10 points, a perfect X-ring hit. Maya could feel the weight of expectation from the assembled observers. Some were pulling for her to succeed, others hoping to see her fail just short of the record. But their expectations were irrelevant now. This was between Maya, her rifle, and a target 1,000 yards away. She worked her body deeper into the modified prone position, accepting the muscle strain and discomfort as part of the challenge. Her breathing slowed further. The rifle became an extension of her body. The scope's reticle settled into perfect alignment with the target center. Maya began to apply pressure to the trigger, feeling for the precise point where the shot would break. She controlled her breathing, timing the shot for the natural respiratory pause when her body was most stable. The shot broke with a crisp, clean trigger release. Maya followed through, maintaining her sight picture until the bullet impact was confirmed. Chief Martinez was quiet for what seemed like an eternity, studying the target through his spotting scope. The range had become completely silent except for the sound of wind through the grass. Finally, Martinez's voice cut through the silence. X-ring, dead center. Perfect 10. Maya's final score was 248 points, a new record by 1 point. The reaction from the observers was immediate and intense. Some applauded, others stood in stunned silence, and a few began animated discussions about what they had just witnessed. Commander Mitchell approached the firing line with a mixture of pride and amazement on his face. "Congratulations, Sergeant Rodriguez," he said, offering his hand. "That was absolutely exceptional shooting." Maya set her rifle down carefully and stood, her legs slightly unsteady from the sustained tension of the modified prone position. Thank you, sir. The course was everything you said it would be. Chief Martinez approached with a broad smile and extended his hand. Rodriguez, that was some of the finest marksmanship I've ever seen. You earned that record completely. Maya shook his hand gratefully. Thank you, Chief. Your advice about the wind shift and muscle fatigue made all the difference. No, Martinez said seriously. Your skill and preparation made all the difference. I just pointed out a couple of details. As word of Maya's performance spread throughout the base, the significance of what had happened began to sink in. An Army sergeant, using Navy equipment she'd only had a week to familiarize herself with, had just broken a 3-year-old record set by one of the Navy's finest marksmen. But Maya understood that the real victory wasn't in the points scored or the record broken. It was in the demonstration that excellence could come from unexpected sources, that traditions could be honored while still being challenged and improved, and that the pursuit of perfection knew no boundaries of service or background. The discussions that followed would continue for months, but the record stood as indisputable proof of what was possible when skill, preparation, and determination converged on a single moment of supreme challenge. Maya had not only broken the record, she had shattered assumptions and opened new conversations about the nature of excellence itself. The aftermath of Maya's record-breaking performance created waves that extended far beyond the confines of the Naval Special Warfare Command. Within hours, word had spread through military communication networks, reaching commands across all service branches. By evening, preliminary reports were being reviewed by personnel at the Pentagon who were responsible for special operations training standards and inter-service cooperation programs. Commander Mitchell found himself fielding calls from senior officers who wanted detailed explanations of how an Army sergeant had been allowed to attempt a Navy SEAL qualification, why the attempt had been documented so thoroughly, and what the implications might be for established training protocols. Each conversation required careful navigation of military politics, inter-service rivalries, and the delicate balance between maintaining unit pride and acknowledging exceptional performance. Sir, Mitchell explained to a particularly skeptical Navy captain during one such call, Sergeant Rodriguez's performance was legitimate in every respect. She used our standard equipment, fired our standard course, and was observed by multiple qualified range officers. The documentation is complete and unambiguous. The captain's concerns reflected those of many senior officers. Commander, I'm not questioning the validity of the performance. I'm questioning the wisdom of allowing it in the first place. What happens when every service member with good shooting scores wants to come test themselves against our standards? It was a fair question, and one that Mitchell had been considering since the morning's events. Maya's success had inadvertently opened a door that many would want to walk through, but few would be qualified to enter. Sir, I believe that's actually an opportunity rather than a problem, Mitchell replied. If we can identify exceptional talent regardless of service branch, and if our standards can help drive improvement across the entire special operations community, that benefits everyone. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, but Mitchell could sense that his reasoning was having an effect. The military valued excellence above almost everything else, and Maya's performance represented excellence in its purest form. Meanwhile, Maya found herself at the center of attention she had never sought and wasn't entirely comfortable with. The SEALs who had initially viewed her with skepticism were now approaching with genuine respect and curiosity. They wanted to understand her training methods, her equipment preferences, her mental preparation techniques. What had started as a simple qualification attempt had become an impromptu seminar on advanced marksmanship. Petty Officer Thompson was among the first to approach her after the official documentation was complete. Rodriguez, I've been shooting competitively for 8 years, and I've never seen anything like what you did today. That modified prone position has been giving people trouble since we implemented it. How did you manage the muscle fatigue? Maya was happy to share her techniques. It's mostly about body positioning and training specific muscle groups, she explained. I spent the week practicing that position for extended periods, building endurance in the stabilizing muscles. Also, if you adjust your natural point of aim slightly and use micro movements to maintain stability, you can reduce the overall strain. The conversation attracted other SEALs, and soon Maya was surrounded by men who wanted to understand and incorporate her methods. It was exactly the kind of professional exchange she had hoped for when she first requested the opportunity to train with the Navy. What about wind reading? Asked Petty Officer Davis. You made adjustments that seemed almost instinctive. Practice and pattern recognition, Maya replied. I spent time studying this range's specific wind patterns. Every range has its own personality based on terrain, structures, and local weather patterns. Once you understand those patterns, you can anticipate changes rather than just react to them. Chief Martinez listened to these exchanges with growing appreciation. Maya wasn't just an exceptional shooter. She was an exceptional teacher. Her willingness to share techniques and insights demonstrated the kind of professional generosity that made the entire community better. Rodriguez, Martinez said during a brief break in the questioning. Have you ever considered instructor duties? Because what you're doing right now, helping other shooters understand and improve, that's as valuable as setting records. Maya had actually thought about instructor positions, but her Army career path hadn't provided many opportunities for specialized marksmanship instruction. I've thought about it, Chief, but my military occupational specialty doesn't typically lead to instructor slots. Well, Martinez said with a thoughtful expression, there might be ways to change that. As the day progressed, the implications of Maya's achievement became clearer. This wasn't just about one person breaking one record. It was about demonstrating that excellence could emerge from unexpected sources and that artificial boundaries between services might be limiting the military's overall potential. Colonel Sarah Henderson, the base's deputy commander, arrived to personally review the documentation and speak with Maya. Henderson was known throughout special operations circles as a strategic thinker who understood both the political and practical aspects of military innovation. Sergeant Rodriguez, Henderson said as they met in Commander Mitchell's office, what you accomplished today is remarkable, but I'm more interested in what it represents for the future. What do you think we should learn from this experience? Maya had been thinking about exactly that question. Ma'am, I think it demonstrates that talent and dedication can overcome institutional barriers. I also think it shows that when you set truly high standards and maintain them rigorously, those standards can attract and develop exceptional performance from unexpected places. Henderson nodded approvingly. I agree, and I think it also demonstrates that our training programs might benefit from more cross-service exchange and cooperation. We've all been developing expertise in relative isolation when we could be learning from each other. The conversation that followed explored possibilities for expanding inter-service training opportunities, developing standardized excellence metrics across all special operations units, and creating pathways for exceptional performers to share their knowledge regardless of their primary service affiliation. Sergeant Rodriguez, Henderson concluded, I'm going to recommend that you be invited to participate in a joint Special Operations Training Development Committee. We need people who can think beyond traditional boundaries and who have proven their ability to perform at the highest levels. It was an opportunity Maya had never imagined when she first requested the chance to observe Navy training methods. Her willingness to challenge herself had opened doors to career possibilities she hadn't known existed. That evening, as the excitement of the day began to settle, Maya found herself back at the range with Chief Martinez. They were ostensibly conducting equipment maintenance, but both knew they were really processing what had happened and what it might mean. Martinez, can I ask you something? Maya said as she cleaned her borrowed rifle one final time. Are you okay with what happened today? I mean, really okay? Martinez looked up from his own rifle maintenance. You mean, am I upset that you broke my record? Yeah, I guess that's what I'm asking. Martinez was quiet for a moment, considering his answer carefully. Rodriguez, I held that record for 3 years. It represented the best I could do on my best day, with everything going perfectly. I'm proud of that accomplishment, and nothing that happened today changes it. He paused, then continued. But what you did today was better. Not by luck or by accident, but through skill, preparation, and execution under pressure. If someone's going to break my record, I'd rather it be broken by someone who earned it completely. Maya appreciated his honesty and his professionalism. Thank you for saying that. And thank you for all the help this week. I couldn't have done this without your guidance. Yes, you could have, Martinez replied. You might have needed more time to figure things out, but you had the skills and the determination to succeed regardless. I just helped you get there a little faster. As they finished their equipment maintenance, Martinez brought up something that had been on his mind since the morning's performance. Rodriguez, I've been thinking about what Colonel Henderson said about cross-service training programs. I think you could play a major role in developing something like that. But it would mean stepping outside your current career path and taking on responsibilities you've never had before. Maya had been thinking about the same thing. What do you think the challenges would be? Politics, mainly, Martinez replied honestly. Some people are going to see this as Army trying to show up Navy, or as an attempt to undermine established training programs. Others are going to want to use you as a symbol or a poster child for their own agendas. You'll have to navigate all of that while still maintaining your focus on excellence and improvement. It was exactly the kind of complex challenge that Maya had always been drawn to. What would you do if you were in my position? I'd focus on the mission, Martinez said immediately. Your mission is to be the best marksman you can be and to help others achieve their potential. Everything else is just noise. If you stay focused on that mission, the politics and personalities will sort themselves out. It was solid advice from someone who had navigated similar challenges throughout his career. Maya filed it away as something to remember during the decisions and opportunities that lay ahead. The next morning brought a stream of visitors to the base. Military journalists wanted to document Maya's achievement. Training specialists wanted to analyze her techniques. Senior officers wanted to understand the implications for their own programs. Maya found herself in the unfamiliar position of being the center of institutional attention. Commander Mitchell had assigned Petty Officer Thompson to help manage the requests and interviews, recognizing that Maya needed support in dealing with aspects of military life she'd never encountered before. "Ma'am," Thompson explained as they reviewed the day's schedule, "you've got 3 interview requests from military publications, 2 requests from training development offices, and 1 request from a Pentagon working group on special operations training standardization." Maya was somewhat overwhelmed by the attention. "Thompson, 6 months ago, I was just another Army sergeant trying to do my job well. This is all completely new territory for me." "Yes, ma'am. But here's the thing. You're handling it exactly right. You're staying focused on the professional aspects. You're sharing knowledge that helps other people improve, and you're not letting it go to your head. That's why people respect what you've accomplished." Over the next several days, Maya participated in numerous interviews and discussions about her training methods, her performance, and the implications for future military training programs. Each conversation reinforced her belief that the military's greatest strength lay in its commitment to excellence and continuous improvement. One of the most significant conversations came when she was contacted by the Army's Marksmanship Unit, an elite organization she had long admired but never thought she might join. "Sergeant Rodriguez," said Master Sergeant Williams during their phone conversation, "your performance at the Navy facility has gotten some attention here at the Marksmanship Unit. We're wondering if you'd be interested in discussing some new opportunities that might be opening up." The conversation that followed outlined possibilities Maya had never imagined. The Army was developing new advanced marksmanship training programs that would require instructors with proven ability to perform at the highest levels and to work effectively with personnel from other services. The position would involve developing curriculum, training instructors, and serving as a liaison with other special operations training programs, Williams explained. "It's not a traditional Army assignment, but then, again, nothing about your career has been traditional." Maya realized that her decision to challenge herself against the Navy's standards had created opportunities that extended far beyond the original goal of testing her abilities. Her willingness to step outside established boundaries had opened doors to career possibilities that could allow her to influence military training and development for years to come. The conversation with Master Sergeant Williams ended with an invitation to visit the Army Marksmanship Unit and discuss the opportunities in detail. Maya accepted immediately, recognizing that this represented exactly the kind of challenge and responsibility she had been unconsciously preparing for throughout her military career. As she hung up the phone, Maya reflected on the chain of events that had brought her to this point. What had started as a simple desire to test herself against the best had evolved into an opportunity to help shape the future of military training and excellence standards. The record she had set was already being discussed and analyzed throughout the special operations community, but Maya understood that the numbers on a scorecard were less important than the conversations and changes those numbers had initiated. She had succeeded in breaking more than just Chief Martinez's record. She had broken through assumptions and barriers that had limited thinking about training, excellence, and the potential for cross-service cooperation and improvement. 6 months after her record-breaking performance at the Naval Special Warfare Command, Maya found herself standing in front of a classroom filled with elite marksmen from all 4 military services. The Joint Special Operations Marksmanship Training Center was a new concept, a facility designed to identify, develop, and share advanced shooting techniques across service boundaries. Maya had been selected as the program's first director, a position that existed because of what she had accomplished and proven. The classroom was located at Fort Benning, but it bore little resemblance to traditional Army training facilities. The walls displayed target achievements and records from Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Air Force Special Operations, and Marine Force reconnaissance units. The underlying message was clear: excellence belonged to no single service, and the pursuit of improvement required learning from the best regardless of their uniform. "Good morning," Maya began, addressing the 24 students who represented the most promising marksmen from across the special operations community. "Before we begin, I want to establish something important. You're here because you've already proven yourselves to be exceptional shooters within your respective services. My job isn't to teach you how to shoot. It's to help you discover what you're truly capable of achieving." Among the students was Petty Officer Thompson, who had requested transfer to the program after witnessing Maya's performance. Also present were Chief Martinez, who had volunteered to serve as an assistant instructor, and representatives from elite units Maya had only read about in military publications. The program Maya had developed was unlike any marksmanship training the military had previously offered. Instead of focusing solely on technical shooting skills, it emphasized problem-solving, adaptation, and the mental disciplines required for consistent performance under extreme pressure. Students learned to analyze and overcome their own limitations while developing teaching skills that would allow them to share their expertise with others. "Sergeant, excuse me, Master Sergeant Rodriguez," said a Marine gunnery sergeant during the first morning's discussion. "Your approach seems to focus as much on psychology as on shooting technique. Can you explain the reasoning behind that?" Maya had been promoted twice since her record-setting performance, a recognition not just of her shooting ability, but of her demonstrated leadership and teaching skills. The promotions had come with increased responsibilities and opportunities to influence training development across multiple commands. "Excellent question, Gunny," Maya replied. "At your level of technical proficiency, the difference between good performance and exceptional performance rarely comes down to mechanical shooting skills. It comes down to your ability to perform consistently regardless of conditions, pressure, or circumstances. That's primarily a mental game." She gestured to a chart showing performance data from various elite units. "Look at these qualification scores. The technical shooting ability across all services is remarkably similar. But look at the consistency data. Some individuals perform at their peak regardless of conditions, while others show significant variation based on external factors. The difference isn't in their trigger control or breathing technique. It's in their mental preparation and adaptability." The discussion that followed revealed the depth of Maya's understanding of performance psychology. Her insights came not from textbooks, but from years of competing under pressure and analyzing her own performance variations. She had learned to identify and overcome the mental barriers that limited most shooters' consistency. Chief Martinez, observing from the back of the classroom, marveled at Maya's transformation from exceptional individual performer to exceptional teacher and leader. Her ability to articulate complex concepts and help others understand their own potential was proving as remarkable as her shooting skills. During the afternoon practical exercises, Maya worked individually with students to identify their specific limitations and development areas. With the Marine gunnery sergeant, she discovered that his performance degraded in windy conditions because he relied too heavily on environmental stability rather than developing techniques for managing variable conditions. "Gunny, you're trying to wait for perfect conditions instead of learning to create consistent performance regardless of conditions," Maya explained as they worked on the 600-yard range. "Watch my wind reading technique. I'm not waiting for the wind to stop. I'm reading its patterns and timing my shots accordingly." The training methods Maya demonstrated had been developed through years of experimentation and refinement. She had analyzed her own performance data, studied video recordings of her shooting sequences, and worked with sports psychologists to understand the mental aspects of elite performance. The program she created synthesized all of this knowledge into teachable techniques. "The key insight," Maya explained to the assembled students at the end of their first week, "is that consistent excellence isn't about eliminating all variables. It's about developing systems and techniques that produce reliable results despite variables. That's what separates good shooters from elite performers." The program's success exceeded even Maya's optimistic projections. Students weren't just improving their own performance. They were returning to their units with new teaching methods and training concepts that elevated entire teams. The cross-service exchange was producing innovations that no single service could have developed in isolation. One of the most significant breakthroughs came when an Air Force technical sergeant and a Navy SEAL collaborated on techniques for shooting from unstable platforms. Their combined expertise, the airmen's understanding of aircraft vibration management, and the SEAL's experience with shipboard shooting, produced methods that enhanced both communities' capabilities. This is exactly what I hoped would happen, Maya told Commander Mitchell during one of his visits to observe the program. When you bring together the best people from different backgrounds and give them permission to share and experiment, they create solutions that none of them could develop individually. Mitchell had become one of the program's strongest advocates, frequently citing Maya's achievements and the subsequent training innovations as validation of the Navy's decision to support cross-service excellence initiatives. Rodriguez, what you've built here is changing how we think about training development across the entire special operations community, Mitchell said as they toured the facility. The techniques your students are developing are being adopted by units we don't even have direct contact with. The program's influence was indeed spreading beyond its immediate participants. Training videos and documentation were being shared throughout the military education system. Maya had been invited to present her methods at conferences and professional development courses. Military publications were featuring articles about the program's innovative approaches and measurable results. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. Colonel Henderson, who had supported the program's development, informed Maya that she had been selected for promotion to Sergeant Major, an unprecedented advancement for someone with her background and experience level. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, Henderson explained during their meeting, this promotion recognizes not just your individual achievements, but your contribution to military training development. You've demonstrated that excellence can emerge from anywhere and that the pursuit of improvement benefits everyone. The promotion ceremony was held at the training center, with representatives from all services in attendance. Chief Martinez served as the master of ceremonies, and Commander Mitchell delivered remarks about innovation, courage, and the importance of challenging established limits. When Sergeant Rodriguez first asked to attempt our qualification course, Mitchell told the assembled crowd, I saw it as a reasonable request from a qualified observer. I had no idea that we were witnessing the beginning of a transformation in how we approach training and development across the special operations community. Maya's response to the promotion was characteristically focused on mission and improvement rather than personal recognition. This promotion doesn't belong to me alone, she said during her remarks. It belongs to everyone who believed that we could do better, who supported innovative approaches to training, and who demonstrated that excellence recognizes no boundaries. Following the ceremony, Maya was approached by a young Army private who had been assigned to the training center as support personnel. The private had been watching the program with obvious interest and admiration. Ma'am, the private said nervously, I'm not qualified for elite training or anything like that, but I've been watching what you do here. I was wondering if you had any advice for someone just starting out who wants to develop exceptional skills. Maya smiled, remembering her own early career questions and uncertainties. What's your military occupational specialty, Private? Vehicle maintenance, ma'am. I work on trucks and equipment. Perfect, Maya replied. Here's what I've learned. Excellence in any field comes from the same basic principles. Set high standards for yourself, study everything you can about your specialty, seek out the best teachers and mentors you can find, and never stop trying to improve. The specific field doesn't matter. The pursuit of mastery is the same regardless of whether you're shooting rifles or rebuilding engines. The private's face lit up with understanding and motivation. Thank you, ma'am. That makes perfect sense. As Maya watched the young soldier walk away with renewed purpose, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. What had started as a personal quest to test her abilities against the highest standards had evolved into a mission to help others discover and develop their own potential for excellence. The training center continued to evolve and expand. Maya's methods were being incorporated into basic training programs, advanced professional development courses, and specialized skills training across all services. The principles she had developed, systematic preparation, mental discipline, cross-service collaboration, and relentless pursuit of improvement, were proving applicable far beyond marksmanship. A year after the program's establishment, Maya received a call that represented the ultimate validation of her approach. The Department of Defense was creating a new position, Director of Special Operations Training Excellence, responsible for identifying and developing innovative training methods across all elite units. "Sergeant Major Rodriguez," said the general who offered her the position. "Your work has demonstrated that exceptional performance is achievable when we combine the right methods with the right commitment. We want you to expand that approach across the entire Special Operations enterprise." Maya accepted the position, recognizing it as an opportunity to influence training and development for thousands of elite military personnel. Her journey from small-town Texas to the Pentagon had been driven by a simple desire to be the best she could be, but it had evolved into something much larger. The record she had set at the Navy range still stood, though it had been challenged several times by students from her own program. Maya encouraged these attempts, understanding that records existed to be broken by better performance. What mattered wasn't the permanence of any particular achievement, but the continuous pursuit of improvement and excellence. As she prepared to transition to her new responsibilities, Maya returned one final time to the Naval Special Warfare Command range where everything had started. Chief Martinez met her there, and together they walked to the 1,000-yard firing line where her record had been established. "Any regrets about that day?" Martinez asked as they stood looking downrange. Maya considered the question seriously. "None at all, Chief. That day taught me that our limitations are usually self-imposed, and that the pursuit of excellence requires us to constantly challenge our assumptions about what's possible." "What do you think you'll remember most about the experience?" "The moment when I realized that breaking the record wasn't really about the score," Maya replied. "It was about proving that excellence can come from anywhere, that traditions can be honored while still being improved upon, and that the military becomes stronger when we share knowledge and challenge each other to be better." Martinez nodded approvingly. "That's exactly the right lesson to take from it." As they prepared to leave the range, Maya took one final look at the 1,000-yard targets. Somewhere in the distance, future marksmen would test themselves against standards that she had helped establish. Some would succeed, others would fall short, but all would benefit from the pursuit of excellence itself. Maya's legacy wasn't measured in points scored or records set. It was measured in the careers she had influenced, the training methods she had developed, and the culture of continuous improvement she had helped foster throughout the military. Her willingness to challenge herself against the highest standards had created ripples that would continue expanding for years to come. The young woman who had once walked through the gates of a Navy base with nothing but determination and a desire to test her limits had become a leader whose influence extended throughout the most elite units in the military. Her story demonstrated that excellence recognizes no boundaries and that the pursuit of improvement benefits everyone willing to embrace the challenge. Maya's journey was far from over, but her impact was already immeasurable. She had proven that one person's commitment to excellence could transform not just their own possibilities, but the possibilities available to everyone around them. In a military culture built on tradition and hierarchy, she had shown that innovation and improvement could honor the past while building a better future. The records would eventually be broken, the specific achievements would fade into history, but the principles Maya had demonstrated and the culture of excellence she had fostered would endure. Her greatest accomplishment wasn't what she had achieved for herself, but what she had made possible for others to achieve in their own pursuit of greatness.